I said, hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, what's going on? No, but I mean, seriously, if you have never played a Resident Evil game before, you're about to be lost, son.
We gotta get out of here.
We're gonna take Umbrella down.
So yes, today we are reviewing Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. Alright. I must preface this by stating one very important fact. That is, I don't know if you watch anything I do besides the movie reviews, but I have made it abundantly clear, and I have played a bunch of them on my channel. I'm a very big fan of Resident Evil, so just about anything involving Resident Evil, for the most part, I'm on board with, and I'm benefit of the doubt, or I'm going to enjoy it to some extent. So I am going into this, as much as I tried to put myself aside, and I did separate my fandom in moments, but keep in mind, if I sound like I'm in favor of anything that was maybe bad, it is only because I am biased. I am desperately trying not to be, but sometimes you can't help yourself. Once again, guess what? And I'm sure nobody heard about this, but they're trying again, damn it. The other Resident Evil films, well, I tell you, boy howdy, the first one back in the day might have been alright, but all those other ones afterwards just got crazier and crazier and weirder and fucking weirder, and just didn't really work out overall as a franchise. It's a damn shame what they did to it. Resident Evil, in my opinion, and I think most of the community's opinion, at its core, is a survival horror game. And Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, all the way, as, 4 started to do action horror, then you have 5, which is, action with horror elements. Long story short, most of the game franchise of Resident Evil, if you are unaware, is a survival horror franchise for the games. That means it's a game where you got some horrific thing like zombies, you gotta ration your bullets, inventory, and all this, what you have on your person to survive, and they incorporate kooky, crazy, high-concept science fiction plots that will often explain why there are zombies, or it's a T virus, a G virus, an outbreak of this or that, and then shit goes downhill, and then you have these standout characters that emerge from the chaos and become the leaders of the franchise. People like, you've heard names like maybe Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, Chris Redfield, Albert Wesker, these big names. If you haven't heard anything I'm talking about, I don't blame you. There's people that don't know about Resident Evil. That's cool. Now they're back at it again. And here we are, 2021, and we have Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City attempting to reboot the franchise and give us something that fans of the OG Resident Evil style have been wanting and missing out on for so long in a cinematic light. Let me tell you why it does, but also doesn't work. So to start off with, Resident Evil, I'm just going to say Resident Evil instead of the whole Welcome to Raccoon City. Long title for a movie ticket, but Resident Evil, directed by Johannes Roberts. He does have a good, he's got a filmography, but most notable films he's done, 47 Meters Down, which is all right. It's not bad. And then another movie that I actually really didn't like, Strangers Prey at Night. I like The Strangers, the first one, most people do, and some will even claim it's their favorite horror movie of all time, but Strangers Prey at Night, while it had some moments that were okay, for me it severely missed the mark. But now he's here with trying to reinvigorate the Resident Evil franchise. Now, I'm a dirty, filthy nerd, so when the announcement came and the streamers that I follow that play the games saw this announcement, all the online personalities, we were watching the trailer, deconstructing each individual still frame and scene to find out. I often forget, most people don't care about any of this, but I was very well aware of the cast, who was casted, who was going to be in it. There were a lot of doubts being hurled back and forth, but there was also some hope in the set design. Like I said, it's a lot. So my opinion of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is, this is the comparison that I figured out. Basically, what they've done with Resident Evil is what the people behind the Cowboy Bebop live action reboot have done. They took the universe and the characters and all that lies therein and have kind of taken elements and reimagined it. Some of the plot points get to the place they were going to go inevitably, and some characters stay the same, but characters are changed. Some things are taken out entirely. Things are not at quite what you would think they would end up being. A lot of, and this is the word of the day here, a lot of artistic liberties are taken. Now, whether they're all for the better or worse for the film, that's kind of up to the viewer to decide. And I think I've figured out what side of the fence I'm on with this. It's a very tricky waters to navigate, and I've already had my fair share of heated, not arguments, but heated conversations regarding this because, going into this, like I said, rose-colored glasses, I was already kind of biased. I was thinking it would at least be an okay movie, plus I was kind of drunk, so I was just having a good time. You know what? No, we'll start with the positives first. So overall, the movie looks great, I think. I'm not saying it's a beautiful piece of like sci-fi, horror, survival, like it's not perfect, but all things considered, I'm not sure what their budget is, but costume design, solid. The set design is where the movie's like, we have rooms that are created like verbatim from the games. You can tell the director, and he said this in interviews, he's a hardcore fan of Resident Evil himself. He took inspiration from the OG games as well as the rebooted games. Like, there's rooms that are shot for shot. There's characters that, you know, he tries with the costumes and all that, but it's mostly about the locations and the set design. The mansion, the Raccoon City Police Department has never looked better in a film format, and I love what they chose to with it, and I love how they portrayed all of that. The environments are great. The guns all look fine. The laboratories all look fine. It could have looked, I think once you get to the labs, it could have looked a bit better and bigger, but again, probably had a limited budget on that, so I understand. And then even some of the creatures, like I think Lisa Trevor's design, might be a little bit wonky at first, but like I was down with it. It was kind of a cool adaptation of how Lisa Trevor originally was in Resident Evil 1. And then especially when it came to like I wish the Lickers were in the movie more. The Lickers only have one scene, and the Lickers look great, terrifying. It's awesome. And there's even some practical effects throughout whenever people are like becoming sick in Raccoon City, like they haven't full zombified, but they're starting to fall apart and get all melty and all this, and a lot of it's practical, and especially when people are getting eaten or chomps and bites getting taken out of them or getting shot, they made it as practical as they could throughout, and I appreciate that. Plus, there's a lot of like props and Easter eggs in the film. I'll get into that in a second, but like a lot of props, but whenever practical, they are practical, and just like, it just warms the cockles of my heart to see these things brought to life. Like I said, set design's great, a lot of Easter eggs. If you are biased and you are a Resident Evil fanboy like me, there are a lot of Easter eggs that you will see, you will get, understand, enjoy. For me, they added to the experience, but for your average film goer who's watching this, they're not gonna know what they're seeing, so it's not really taking them into consideration. It's just like, oh, well, you would know about all of this if you played the games, which is kind of unfair, but I loved it personally. And for the most part, like, although I don't agree with all the casting decisions, you can tell that with what they're given, the cast are really trying. Like, even with the film itself, you can tell, tonally speaking, as opposed to some of the previous Resident Evil high-flying action zombies, you got dogs and things flying on the screen and things getting blown up over here and explosions. Like, this feels a bit more grounded in the sense they're trying to kind of bring back some of the horror. Doesn't always work. I was never really scared or like, ugh, but they were trying to bring back horror elements and, you know, more tense moments, and the effort is there. It's not, the execution doesn't always come through, but the effort is there, and for me, god damn is the effort appreciated. I see the effort, I see what's attempting to be done, and I appreciate it. Okay, so into the cons. Alright, I hate to admit it, but if I'm nothing, I try to be a fair man. This movie's pretty messy. It's not great, and it tries to do so much. I'm so confused. Like, out of the first 3 Resident Evil games, Resident Evil 2 and 3 take place at first, like, before, during, and after each other. they intersect is what I'm saying. Resident Evil, the games 2 and 3, they intersect. So why they would choose to take Resident Evil 1 and then like most of Resident Evil 2 and then try to combine those two, I get what they were going for, but we were trying to fit it in less than 2 hours. There's too much is attempted to be done. And I mean, oh my god, like, I thought I was gonna give him benefit of the doubt. I was. But Ivan Jogia? I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his name. Props to him, I'm sure he's a fine actor. They absolutely fucking massacred Leon's character. I get it. It's Leon's first day on the job. He is literally a rookie cop. He is coming into the police station to work his first day, and on the way to the fucking city, the city zombie apocalypses and turns into a shitstorm. But he's still a trained and fully capable police officer who has skill, who is smart, altruistic, he means well, but in this he's like a fucking like inept like loser, like not stoner or whatever, but he just is a fucking inept loser who can barely take care of shit until like a moment halfway in the movie and then some like minor redemption at the end. But damn, is his character wasted. He's not useless. And in the movie, he feels useless. I was willing to accept a virtual like an overhaul of it, kind of like in Cowboy Bebop, right? I was willing to accept how they were visually trying to interpret vicious on screen. I get that. You can't make anime people always look fucking normal, so I get the translation, but then, you know, again, it's from that point on when you start taking not even artistic liberties anymore, when you start making these drastic changes to a character's character, that's when you start fucking up. But credit where credit's due. Kaya Scodelario, I think it was, Scodelario, as Claire, she's the best part of the film. I think she nails Claire. I think everybody else in the movie does an okay job representing their character. I think Chris Redfield is cast fine. Albert Wesker was a weird one, and I don't really get any menacing vibes from him, even up into the end. And Jill, I mean, sure. But at least Claire redeems it. Claire is kind of centered as the main character in this film, and I think she does a good Claire at the very least. It feels like a lot of characters in this movie are making the characters their own when they're supposed to be characters from a pre-existing universe and franchise. A lot is left out. So much is left out that would here's the thing. Where me coming into this film, I'm in a advantageous position because I know so much about Resident Evil and I've seen it played through. I've played through it so many times. I know all the small bits of lore. I know the big bits of lore. I can catch all the references, all the jokes. I know the plot, how it progresses. But think about someone like me going into Dune for the first time. I knew nothing about Dune, and after seeing Dune, I understood so much about the world, the universe, all the characters were portrayed so well. It was a damn near masterpiece of a film, and it was me at entry level not knowing what the hell any of it meant. But if I was somebody who had never ever seen a single second of Resident Evil, I would be so confused going into this movie, and so many questions are brought up, so few are answered. You're given enough to work with, but I could understand how this film would seem very unsatisfying, and how it would just be kind of weird. And it's so weird for me to put myself in those shoes again. I was looking at this film as somebody who knew about Resident Evil, so I feel like if I watched it again, I would want to watch it again and put myself in the headspace of someone who doesn't know any of these characters. Then maybe it would feel different. But yeah, I gotta say, it's just it's kind of unfair because as an entry-level Resident Evil film, which is what this is trying to be, oh, here's an introduction to the series via a reboot. I think it does a piss poor job at that. It could have been so much better. It needed better character representation, better writing, and better sourcing of its source material to really kind of do it justice and bring it all into its own. Again, me knowing about the game and how everything works going into it, being by it, that's one thing. But for the people that are your average film goer going into this, it's really unfair to them and kind of difficult because it's going to be difficult to get into the series. Sorry, recording problems. So you heard me still, but video or pictures got different. I don't know how I did it in post, but take it for what you will. Half of it got kind of fucked up. So I think just because I am always playing devil's advocate for any given situation, I get what they were trying to do in the film. And like Cowboy Bebop, I think like that live action remake was decent, and I appreciate their take on it. Like with this, look, I prefer the original Resident Evil plot and how that all goes. Do I appreciate what they were trying to go for with this? Yes. Do I think it was a decent reboot? I think it was okay. This was not a great movie. I'm not sure I would say go see this in theaters. If you're a big super fan like me, maybe see it in theaters. But honestly, I mean, your average moviegoer, look, if you're not a fan of horror to begin with, I would avoid this one altogether. If you kind of like Resident Evil, you might have a good time. It's really hard to tell. For me, I think, bottom line is this. Resident Evil Raccoon City is an attempt to return to what Resident Evil is about at its core, in my personal belief, what it's about at its core. Survival, horror. That's it. Over the years, the games have changed and developed. Some have become action horror, some have become straight up action, and as we return back to the newer models of Resident Evil 7 as well as Resident Evil Village, they've once again become more that survival horror and also action horror. And that's kind of where the formula finds its best stride. However, I always see it as survival horror, stick together, have these interesting, varied, standout characters, this crazy subplot about Umbrella Corporation, the evil atrocities they've committed, and trying to shut them down and fight bio-mutated weapons and people that have injected themselves with the virus and all this. I like what they were trying to do. And I love the director's vision in his mind, and I really appreciate him trying to bring it to the screen. I think he succeeded in a lot of points, but I think in terms of being an entry-level rebooted film to bring new fans and old fans together alike, I think it really misses the mark in terms of perhaps better casting, definitely better for Leon. Better writing overall would have helped immensely with these actors, which there are some good actors in this thing, and I think with better writing they could have shown even more. I think if you had made the movie longer, that could have helped out because you had more time to flesh these people out and develop them. But most importantly, I really wish they had just focused on Resident Evil 1. Because why not? Because then you have a whole movie to develop some of these characters, and then start going to Resident Evil 2 and 3 and combine those. Now, I'm sure there are slightly more action elements in Resident Evil 2 that they probably wanted to dip into and utilize. I get it. But I think you're putting people at a disadvantage by trying to shove so much into a movie. Because this movie has a lot in it, and I'm sure there's, like I said, a lot of effort went into it, but there's just almost too much. And it kind of just trips over itself and doesn't really get across a clear message and give us a great film. I think if you look at this movie in the right light, it's okay. I think it's okay or decent. I don't think it's really good. I don't think it's great. But I don't think it's terrible. And again, that is because I am very, very biased with this. So me trying to be the most fair that I can with my opinion, and not only as a fan, as how I viewed and enjoyed the film, but trying to take into account the average film goer and look at this as a film in general, my review would probably put this movie at a low 3 out of 5. I'll give it a low 3 out of 5. As a film, below average. As a rebooted Resident Evil movie, a step, crazy enough, a step in the right direction. I really hope if another one gets made, and I do low-key hope another one gets made, I hope they can make it even better than this one. Take the same idealistic attitude and improve upwards even more. Because like I said, I like what they were trying to do here, but it just, imagine if you got the director of Dune and Blade Runner up in this bitch to adapt this. Oh my god, it would have been amazing. But here we are. So yeah, that review might have been a bit weird and choppy in editing. I might have tried to save some of it where I could. That is all the time I have for today. That was my review of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Like I said, I am willing to be a man, step up here and say that it is not great, that I like it a lot because I'm a fan of the series, and that maybe as a film by itself, it's could be so much better, and it falters a lot. But I'm very appreciative of the effort put into it, and I'll leave it at that. And I think this movie in itself is loads better than a lot of the crazier movies that have come before, so just keep that in mind. Don't go in expecting the world, and I think you'll be okay. But as always, that is all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, listening, what have you, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. Goodbye, travelers.